You're here to watch a video specifically about Pokemon Spinoff, so I don't think I need to go through the whole spiel about what Pokemon is. If you're here to watch a video about Pokemon Spinoffs without knowing what Pokemon is, somehow, thanks for the view. When I came up with this idea, I thought there were maybe like 15 spin-off games, but I was incredibly wrong about that. Some clarification to what I mean by spin-off. I will not be discussing games that are not specifically Pokemon games, even if they feature Pokemon and/or Pokemon characters. The Smash series, for example, will not be covered. The toys, such as Pokemon Mini, the various Pokeball toys, and the various Pokewalker peripherals, will also not be addressed. Remakes of the core series games are not spin-offs. A few additional notes. I will not be doing deep dives on each individual game. I'm going to be providing a brief overview of each game or game series. I have loosely categorized the games, largely based on how they are grouped on Bulbapedia, but there are games that can fit into multiple categories or don't have a real category, so I just chose where to put them based on personal preference. And sorry in advance for anything that I mispronounce. With all that out of the way, let's get started. The first games we're going to talk about are Sega games. The idea of a Pokemon game on a Sega system intrigued me when I first saw this. When was it released? Is there like a lost Dreamcast Pokemon game out there? But then, quickly, I realized these were edutainment games. There were 7 games released between 2002 and 2010, with the first 3 being released on the Sega Pico and the last 4 being released on the Pico Advance Beta. There's not a lot that can be said about these games. They were specifically made to teach children early math and language skills. They were also all exclusive to Japan. The games in this series were Pokemon Catch the Numbers, Pokemon Advanced Generation, I've begun Hinagana and Katakana, Pokemon Advanced Generation, Pico for Everyone, Pokemon Lao Battle, Pokemon Advanced Generation, Pokemon Number Battle, Intellectual Training Drill, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl Letter and Number Intelligence Game, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl Search for Pokemon Adventure in the Maze, and Pokemon Best Wishes Intelligence Training Pokemon Big Sports Meet. Moving on to some PC games. First up is Pokemon Project Studio Red and Blue, released in 1999 in North America. While there are 2 versions of this software, both versions are the exact same except for the Pokemon available to use in the projects. Pokemon Project Studio isn't a game so much as it is software that allowed you to create custom Pokemon-themed stationery. There was also apparently an educational goal for Pokemon Project Studio, which was to allow children to exercise their imaginations and creativity, but also to introduce parents to Pokemon. Pokemon 2000 was a browser-based first-person adventure game released by Cyberworld International Corporation in 2000. The game was promotion for the second Pokemon film for AOL Time Warner, and was only playable via Cyberworld's specialized browser. There was, however, a contract dispute which led to the game being taken down only 4 weeks after it was released, though in those 4 weeks it was downloaded over 1 million times. Pokemon Pokérom Gotta Learn Them All, a series of not only playable but also collectible mini-CD-ROMs, released by Mattel Interactive in 2000. Each game featured math puzzles, printables, the ability to build a Pokemon collection on your PC desktop, which, considering these were early 2000s PCs, probably did some damage, observe Pokemon, and much more. Pokemon Masters Arena was a PC game containing 8 minigames. Released on January 1st, 2004 in North America, the 8 minigames were designed to test players' knowledge of Pokemon. If the player proved themselves a true Pokemon master, upon fully completing all 8 games, they earned 8 posters, which could be printed. Pokemon Team Turbo, a PC racing game released on October 28, 2005. The game featured 6 racing courses, as well as 5 minigames which could be played to gain power-ups for the races. Pokemon PC Master was an edutainment game released exclusively in Japan on June 20, 2006. The game focused on teaching children how to use a computer, showing them how to type, draw, browse the web, and generally use the mouse. Also released in the summer of 2006 were a series of 3 minigames on 3 separate mini-discs. The odd thing about these games to me is that they were part of a cross-promotion with Purdue, like Purdue Chicken Purdue. The games, because of this promotion, were distributed in packages of Purdue Chicken Nuggets. The games included on these discs were Team Rocket Blast-Off, Pokeball Launcher, and Pokemon Seek and Find. Additionally included on the discs were a special 10th anniversary music video and clips from the anime, which could be accessed after beating the included game on any difficulty. The discs also contained a learn-to-play demo for the Pokemon TCG and a virtual Pokedex. Now, I'm going to assume you want a summary of these 3 Purdue games. Great. Team Rocket Blast-Off featured Ash and May attempting to catch Pokemon the Team Rocket trio were tossing from their hot air balloon. Catching the Pokemon earned you points, but, naturally, if you failed to catch a Pokemon, you lost points. But you would also lose points if you caught sandbags that were tossed alongside the Pokemon. Pokeball Ball Launcher simply has you controlling either Ash or May trying to catch Pokemon. Simple. Pokemon would appear and disappear at random, with you having a limited amount of time and Pokeballs to catch them. You win by catching a certain amount of Pokemon. Seek and Find is very simple, as it is just a Pokemon version of Where's Waldo or I Spy. In a cluster of various different Pokemon, your goal was to find a specific Pokemon. The Pokemon you had to find was only represented by a silhouette with various text clues also present to help you identify the Pokemon. Next up is Pokemon Card Game Online. This is not Pokemon TCG Online, that came later. Pokemon Card Game Online was a Japan-exclusive game. The game could only be accessed if you had a unique registration code that was only included with the Leafeon vs. Metagross Expert deck, which also came with the necessary CD-ROM. The game also only allowed players to use pre-built decks. The game was active from November 20th, 2009 to August 31st, 2010. Now we can talk about Pokemon TCG Online. Pokemon TCG Online was first launched on March 24, 2011 as a browser-based game, before being made available as a downloadable PC game in 2012, with releases to mobile iOS devices in 2014 and mobile Android devices in 2016. Pokemon TCG Online was literally just a virtual version of the Pokemon card game with all the same rules. On September 21st, 2021, it was announced Pokemon TCG Online would soon be shut down and replaced by Pokemon Trading Card Game Live, which is supposed to happen sometime in 2022. And finally, for this section are 2 Facebook games, Pokemon Medallion Battle and Pokemon Tower Battle, both released in 2019. Medallion Battle is exclusive to select Asian countries, while Tower Battle was released mostly worldwide. Medallion Battle has players battle with virtual Pokemon medallions. Each medallion has a different CP, which determines the winner, the higher CP naturally winning. Tower Battle has players taking turns and placing Pokemon artwork to create a tower. If the player manages to knock over their opponent's tower, they win. Pokemon Arcade Games. There are many Pokemon arcade games, some are standalone games and others are part of a series. First, I'll discuss the standalone games, all of which were released exclusively in Japan. The first arcade game was Dance Pikachu, released in December 1999. The objective of this game was to make Pikachu dance in time to a song the player selected. Regardless of how well the player did, at the end of the game, they would be rewarded with a postcard. Next is Pikachu's Great Surfing Adventure, released in 2000. The game featured Pikachu riding a Lapras, with the player needing to guide the Lapras down a river and pass over as many Pokeballs that line the river as possible, while avoiding various obstacles. Prizes for the game were cards from an exclusive set of 36, with a special prize being an A-Class license card. Pokemon Crayon Kids was released in July 2001 and is a simple game where the player would just draw a picture of a Pokemon based on a selected image, and after the drawing was complete, it would be printed off. Pokemon Whop Off It Fell Down was released in 2006. To play the game, medals had to be inserted, with a maximum of 5 medals able to be input. Each medal inserted gave the player a Pokemon to control, with the objective being to reach the goal guarded by a Meowth within 30 seconds. Meowth initially starts off facing a tree, but will eventually turn around and any Pokemon caught moving at this time will be frozen and unable to continue. Winning the game dispenses more medals for the player to use in either playing this game or another one. Pokemon Get Round and Round, released in 2010, is, as far as I can tell, simply a game from which you can win more medals. If you're wondering what these medals I'm talking about are, they're tokens, arcade tokens that you need to play games. And Get Round and Round is just a game where you can potentially win a large amount of the medals. Pokemon Tug of War Tournament Absolutely Get Medal, released in 2010, is another game where the prize is medals. The game involves playing tug of war with a team of Pokemon made up of various Pokemon used by anime protagonists. To win, additional medals need to be inserted so more Pokemon can be obtained and used on the player's team. Pokemon Meta World, released on January 17, 2012, is yet again another machine where the sole objective is to win large amounts of additional medals. To win, the player needs to launch medals at or towards various parts of the machine to trigger certain gameplay elements from which medals can be won. Pokemon Card Game Gacha, released on June 23, 2014, is a game where the objective is to accumulate Pokeballs over the course of gameplay. If the player does well in a particular round, higher grade Pokeballs, such as Great Balls and Ultra Balls, can be obtained. Once the game ends after 3 rounds have been completed, the player is awarded with 3 Pokemon TCG cards. Obtaining higher grade Pokeballs increases the chances of obtaining a rare card. Pokemon Battle 9, released on July 8, 2014, is a game where the objective is to capture as many Pokemon as possible. Pokemon appear 9 at a time on a 3x3 grid. At the start, the player can select a Pokemon to use, with them being able to obtain up to 3 additional Pokemon, which can then also be used. In general, the game has similar mechanics to the core series. The player uses their Pokemon to battle the Pokemon that appear, weakening them and allowing them to be captured. Pokemon used by the player are also capable of leveling up, learning new moves, and evolving. The prize for this game is, of course, medals. Bear with me for this next part. There was quite a lot of information on how these games worked and their various mechanics, but at times it also seemed like there wasn't enough information or just wasn't condensed enough. And I need to summarize this or we'll be here forever. There are additional mechanics and features of these games that I'm just not going to mention, for the sake of simplicity and time. Also, to be perfectly honest, I do not fully understand these games. Despite seeming simple, there's just a lot to them in terms of battle mechanics, and then each upgrade and various installment in the series changes certain things, and it just seems far more complicated to me than it probably is. Beyond these standalone arcade games, there's a series of games that have also been released. All of the games in the series have been developed by Takara Tomy Arts and Marvelous, and all have similar mechanics, most notably the requirement of a physical peripheral to play the game. These peripherals have various names and come in various shapes and sizes over the course of the series. The peripherals needed could either be purchased by the player or could be won from the machines. All these arcade games have only been released in Asia. The series began with Pokemon Batrio, released on July 14, 2007. To play the game, pucks, or small discs, are needed. The pucks were dispensed when coins were inserted into the machine, and more pucks could be obtained if more coins were inserted. These pucks then needed to be placed into a slot on the machine, where its information was read by the machine, creating a virtual representation of it in the game. Each of the pucks contained a different Pokemon and that Pokemon's individual stats, such as HP, attack, defense, etc. These puck Pokemon were then used to battle in the game. The Pokemon battles were 3-on-3. If the player had only 1 or 2 pucks, additional random Pokemon would be given to them to create a full team of 3. The pucks could be arranged into various formations prior to the battle beginning, with different formations granting various bonuses. The HP of all Pokemon was combined into one health bar, with the objective being to fully deplete your opponent's health bar. There was no limit to how many times a Pokemon could be used, but after 1 round the Pokemon would become exhausted, resulting in depleted stats. Various other aspects of the battle system differed between the different versions of the game. Such as by Batrio Zero, the formation mechanic was changed to having field power zones, which granted similar bonuses, and by Batrio 5, the power bonus mechanic was completely abandoned. In April 2012, Batrio was discontinued, and all machines were replaced by Pokemon Treta. Treta, like Batrio, required pucks, this time called Treta. Treta introduced the mechanic of being able to capture Pokemon in-game, with these captured Pokemon then being dispensed on the pucks necessary to play the game. The battle mechanics of Treta had the player, at the start of each round, select one of 3 possible Pokemon they had to battle against 3 opposing Pokemon. The player's Pokemon would then attack all 3 opposing Pokemon at the same time. When the player's Pokemon was attacked, it was possible, via a correctly timed button press, to avoid the attack. To defeat the opposing Pokemon, their catch gauge had to be filled, and once filled, that Pokemon was no longer able to battle and would be easier to capture. The battles would last for 3 rounds, or end if all the players' Pokemon fainted. Pokemon Ga Ole was released in Japan on July 7, 2016. Ga Ole's pucks were called discs. The battle system for Ga Ole was similar to that of Treta, but the battles in Ga Ole were 2-on-2. The game also once again allowed players to potentially capture the opposing Pokemon they battled, with these captured Pokemon once again being dispensed by the machine as the pucks necessary to play. Pokemon Mesostar is the most recent release in the series, launching on September 17, 2020. The pucks used for this game are referred to as tags. The battles in Mesostar once again feature teams of 3, but this time the Pokemon battle one-on-one, the player selecting the Pokemon they want to use against the opposing Pokemon each turn, with it again possible to catch the opposing Pokemon during battles. Mesostar also introduced a new minigame called Get Now, in which the player can capture random Pokemon by throwing quick balls at patches of grass. While up to 5 Pokemon will spawn in this minigame, to catch the Pokemon, the player must pay 100 yen per Pokemon. As with the previous games, any captured Pokemon are distributed by the machine as the pucks necessary to play. Pokken Tournament has also been released as an arcade game, but as it's also been released on consoles, and because I want to be done with this section, I'm going to discuss it later. Picross MP Volume 1 was the first in a series of Picross games released by Nintendo, all of which were based on Nintendo's most popular series. Volume 1, since I'm mentioning it here, was clearly based on Pokemon, and was released for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System via the Nintendo Power Service in April '99. Picross, if you're not familiar, is a timed game in which you must complete a replication of a photo on a grid by coloring in the correct squares. Essentially, you're just creating pixel art on a timer. As an additional note, there is a cancelled game called Pokemon Picross that was supposed to be released for the Game Boy Color. This, of course, is not to be confused with Pokemon Picross, a freemium game released for the 3DS in December 2015. Pokemon Dash, first released in Japan on December 2, 2004, is a Pokemon-themed racing game for the DS. I mean, there's not much to say here, it's just Mario Kart with Pokemon and no cars. A notable thing, I guess, is that Munchlax appears in the game, making it the first Gen 4 Pokemon to appear in a game. Pokepark Fishing Rally DS is a Japan-exclusive game released on May 10, 2005. The game was only available as a DS download play demo, and as such, would disappear after shutting the DS system down or after 12 hours had passed. As the name suggests, Pokepark Fishing Rally DS was a Pokemon-themed fishing game. Learn with Pokemon Typing Adventure is, as you could probably guess, an edutainment game, first released on April 21, 2011 in Japan. The game was only released in Japan, Europe, and Australia. It's a game that teaches typing, and as such, it came with a wireless keyboard that could connect to the DS. You can, in fact, catch Pokemon in this game, with the catching mechanic being tied to the learn typing aspect. As to catch the Pokemon, you have to correctly type the Pokemon's name. Otherwise, it's a standard typing edutainment game. Pokemon Conquest is a crossover with Nobunaga's Ambition. The game was first released on March 17, 2012 in Japan. Pokemon Conquest takes place in the Ronsai region. The main plot of the game revolves around the player character following the legend of Ronsai to conquer and unite all 17 kingdoms of the region to bring about the return of the region's creator. And, quick little question segment, based off of this map, can you tell who created the Ronsai region? Conquest is a turn-based strategy game. Up to 6 Pokemon can participate in battles, with the number depending on how many warriors the player has recruited. The player has to both move the Pokemon around the field as well as attack with them. Each Pokemon only has one move. Battles are won or lost based on varying victory conditions that must be achieved within a set amount of turns. These conditions change between locations. Warriors are recruited when they are defeated in a way that meets one of several recruitment criteria. Pokemon increase in strength by improving their link with the warrior that uses them. As the link power between Pokemon and warrior increases, so does the strength of that Pokemon's attack. Pokemon can also evolve once their link reaches a certain level. While multiple Pokemon can be caught and used, not every warrior can achieve a 100% or a perfect link with just any Pokemon, and it can take time to find the perfect Pokemon for a given warrior. Conquest battles also feature Pokemon abilities, many of which come from the main series games, but additional new and unique abilities are also introduced. Warriors have skills that can be used in battle, with these skills having varying effects such as powering up or healing a Pokemon. Warriors can also equip various items which will have various in-battle effects. Outside of battle, warriors can be made to perform other actions, such as buying from a shop or mining for gold. However, a warrior can only perform one action per month, and cannot battle if they have already used up their action for that month. The player can also delegate a kingdom they control, with 3 actions available: train to increase the link between warrior and Pokemon, search to recruit more allies, or develop, which levels up the kingdom. There's more features to this game, but I'm trying to summarize, and I'm most likely doing that poorly. Pokédex 3D, a free app released in June 2011 that was available through the eShop. Pokédex 3D was simply the Unova Pokédex, though an enhanced version of it that included the full national dex up to that point was released in Japan. Pokédex 3D was very simply a Pokédex, allowing access to much of the same information the in-game Pokédex did, with the addition of egg groups and Pokemon movesets as available in black and white. The Pokemon models in the Pokédex, as implied by the title, were fully 3D and animated. Using the 3DS camera, you were able to view these Pokemon in the real world. Pokemon Art Academy, first released on June 19, 2014 in Japan. This game is a crossover with the Art Academy series. It's another simple game as you are guided through tutorials and lessons on how to draw various Pokemon. The Thieves and the 1000 Pokemon was a Japan-exclusive free downloadable game released on June 5, 2014, and only available for a limited time. The main plot of the game revolved around Chespin, Fennekin, and Froakie, setting out on a journey to recover diamonds stolen from the Diamond Domain. Gameplay-wise, The Thieves and the 1000 Pokemon was a resource management game. Players' resources were Chespin, Fennekin, and Froakie, which had to be properly used to progress through the game's 16 base stages. There were 4 bonus stages in the game, which told an additional story that took place after the end of the main story. Pokemon Shuffle is a freemium puzzle game first released on the 3DS via the eShop on February 18, 2015. But the mobile version for iOS and Android devices released later in 2015. Shuffle is a standard match 3 puzzle game, but with the twist that you battle Pokemon by making matches to inflict damage. Once a stage's Pokemon has been defeated, it can be captured, with captured Pokemon able to act as support. The tiles you match in the game represent Pokemon, and as Pokemon they each have a type, attack stat, and level, which determines how much damage an attack will do. The Pokemon also have skills which are used when they are matched under certain criteria. Pokemon Shuffle received its final update in February 2018, with the game now running on an automated schedule that lasts up until 2037. I'll be awaiting the doomsday theories for that one. Detective Pikachu is an adventure game released on March 23, 2018. A demo for the game had previously been released in February 2016. The game features a talking Pikachu who is suffering from amnesia. This Pikachu can only be understood by a boy named Tim Goodman. Tim and Pikachu team up to find Harry Goodman, Tim's father and Pikachu's former owner, who disappeared after a mysterious car crash that also resulted in Pikachu's amnesia. As the duo investigate various cases, They uncover a larger plot involving a dangerous drug called R, which induces Pokemon to go on rampages. Tim and Pikachu eventually discover the source of R, as well as a plan to release it during a carnival. Working together, the pair manage to thwart this plan, and after Pikachu fulfills a promise he made to Mewtwo, him and Tim set off to continue their search for Harry. The gameplay of Detective Pikachu is relatively simple. As to solve various mysteries and progress in the story, all Tim and Pikachu have to do is walk around and examine the scene to find clues, as well as talk to various people and Pokemon to uncover new information. Detective Pikachu, as I'm sure nearly all of you know, was adapted into a live-action film which was released on May 10th, 2019. Next, I'm going to try to very quickly get through the Pokemon storage utilities. There have been several iterations of Pokemon storage utilities released, with the first being Pokemon Box Ruby and Sapphire on May 30th, 2003, with this iteration being for the GameCube, and compatible with various Gen 3 era games. The next storage utility was My Pokemon Ranch, a WiiWare title released in 2008. My Pokemon Ranch was only compatible with Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, and only Pokemon obtained in those games could be transferred to the ranch. Pokemon Bank launched first on December 25, 2013, before being relaunched in 2014 as a Pokemon storage utility for the 3DS. Pokemon Bank is compatible with Pokemon X and Y, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Pokemon Sun and Moon, and Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. But with the use of a companion app, Poké Transporter, Pokemon from the Gen 5 games, as well as the virtual console releases of Gens 1 and 2, can be transferred to it. Pokemon Bank has an annual fee that varies from territory to territory. The most recent Pokemon storage utility is Pokemon Home, launched on February 12, 2020. Home is available on the Switch, as well as iOS and Android devices, this allowing Pokemon caught in Pokemon Go to be transferred to it. While Pokemon from the Let's Go games, as well as Sword and Shield, can be freely transferred to Pokemon Home, a premium plan is required to transfer Pokemon from the 3DS series of games, and only Pokemon already deposited into Pokemon Bank can be transferred. A premium plan is also required if you would like to store more than 30 Pokemon, which is totally reasonable and not at all pathetically greedy. Pokemate was the first official Pokemon mobile app, launched on June 5, 2006 and exclusive to Japan. Pokemate began life as a Pokemon-themed instant messaging app before the ability to catch and keep Pokemon as virtual pets was added. When accessed for the first time, one Pokemon is given to the player, and I'm using the word player very, very loosely here, and up to 3 more Pokemon could be caught, unless you paid for a monthly subscription, in which case you were able to catch more. Pokemate was discontinued in January 2008 after only a year and a half of service. Can't imagine why. Pokemon Say Tap was an incredibly basic but free rhythm game. Literally, all you did was tap on screen in time with music while various Pokemon cards appeared in the background. The game, and again, I'm using that word incredibly loosely, was released on July 15th, 2011 and only available in Japan. Pokédex for iOS. This is just Pokédex 3D for iOS devices. I'm not wasting any more time on it. Pokemon TV is both a website launched in November 2010 and a mobile app launched on February 12, 2013. That is a free streaming service allowing you to watch episodes of the Pokemon anime, as well as the Pokemon movies and various specials. The service is not available in Asia, and the availability of certain anime seasons and movies is restricted in certain countries. Pokemon Camp is a free app released for iOS devices on October 21, 2014, and for Android devices on April 14, 2016. Pokemon Camp was designed for young children and aimed to teach them the basics of Pokemon through a variety of minigames that showcase core gameplay mechanics. The app has since been discontinued. Pokemon Jukebox, released in 2015, was an app that allowed you to listen to previews of songs from the various Pokemon game soundtracks, as well as purchase and download the full songs. Dancing? Pokemon Band. Released exclusively in Japan starting on June 30th, 2015, and only available for a limited time until September 30th, 2015. It's a rhythm game, so once again, you simply tap various icons on the screen in time to the music playing. Pokemon Photo Booth. Released in 2016, it's a Pokemon-themed photo filter app. That's it. At this point in my script, I wrote, I'm slowly losing my mind. What is the point of any of these? And having to go back through these and narrate this all, I'm doubling down on that. Pokemon Duel was an app based on the Pokemon trading figure game. Which, did any of you know that was a thing? Because I didn't until I read about this game. The app was first released in April 2016 in Japan, before being launched worldwide on January 24th, 2017. Pokemon Duel is a virtual strategy board game that uses the rules and mechanics of the real-world trading figure game, which seems to operate like Pokemon-themed checkers. Pokemon Magikarp Jump, released in May 2017, is a simple and easy game where you fish for a Magikarp and raise it to be the best jumper in the world. It is possible to lose your Magikarp, though, through various means, resulting in you needing to fish for and raise a new Magikarp. Pokemon Playhouse is a free app launched on September 21st, 2017. The app is intended for children between the ages of 3 and 5. The goal of the app is to hatch various Pokemon eggs and then befriend the various hatched Pokemon, achieved by engaging in simple activities with them. The app is only available in North America, Europe, and Australia. Pokemon Quest is a free-to-start game released for the Switch in May 2018 and for mobile devices in June 2018. In the game, the player ventures to Tumblecube Island, a recently discovered island with the remnants of a mysterious but now vanished civilization. The goal of the game is to explore the island and defeat wild and boss Pokemon to clear the various stages of the game. As each stage is cleared, a statue is found, and gathering all these statues reveals the secret of Tumblecube Island. Pokemon Pass is a free US-only app for mobile devices launched on May 1st, 2019. The app's primary function is to allow mobile devices to scan in-store QR codes. Scanning these codes allows for redemption of special serial codes for various Pokemon distribution events. The app can also be used with the device's camera, but this only allows you to view stickers which can also be redeemed by scanning in-store QR codes. Pokemon Masters EX, known as just Pokemon Masters prior to August 2020, is a free-to-play game launched on August 29, 2019. The game takes place on Paseo Island, where a tournament known as the Pokemon Masters League is taking place. The objective of the game is to become the champion of the tournament. The battles in the game are 3-on-3, with players teaming up with 2 other trainers. The 2 other trainers are characters from the core Pokemon series games. In Masters EX, the player not only has to collect Pokemon, but also collect partner trainers, with this naturally being made easier if you spend money. The game also features a side plot involving the evil Team Break, who, in a stroke of genius originality, are attempting to steal Pokemon from trainers. Pokemon Smile, released on June 17, 2020 for mobile devices, is a game in which Pokemon are captured by brushing your teeth. Pokemon Cafe Mix, now known as Pokemon Cafe Remix, is another free-to-play puzzle game laden with microtransactions. The game was released on June 24, 2020. In the game, the player must link together Pokemon icons by swirling them around the screen. By linking icons and making matches, the player prepares and serves drinks and dishes to the customers of the cafe, who are Pokemon. Pokemon Unite is yet again another free-to-play game, but this time it's a multiplayer battler. Unite was first released for the Switch on July 21st, 2021, then released for mobile devices on September 22nd, 2021. Unite is a strategic battle game in which players face off in 5-on-5 battles. In these battles, the objective is to score points in the opposing team's goals. This is done by defeating both wild Pokemon that appear during the battles, as well as defeating the opposing team's Pokemon. Doing this will give the player Eos energy, which they must bring to an opposing goal, giving them points. The team with the most points wins. During battles, Pokemon also gain experience by defeating the wild Pokemon that appear. And just as in the main games, the Pokemon will level up as they gain more experience, letting them learn new moves as well as evolve. Special wild Pokemon may also appear during Unite battles. Defeating these special wild Pokemon will award the team that did so with a bonus. For example, defeating a Zapdos allows for instant scoring at the opposing team's goals, and also unleashes an attack on the opposing team which causes damage and stuns their Pokemon for a short period. Each Pokemon in Unite has a battle style that combines a position, an attacker, a defender, or an all-rounder, with an attack style, either ranged or melee. The last mobile game/app I'll talk about in this section is an upcoming one currently titled Pokemon Sleep. Not much has been revealed about this upcoming game except that the Pokemon Company is promising to somehow turn sleep into entertainment. No release date as of recording this on January 7th, 2022 has been set. There are several apps I skipped in this section because they are nothing, basically. This included apps that were literally just digital versions of official guidebooks, apps that were once again some version of a Pokedex or item dex that are completely pointless, and various other apps that are just Pokemon-themed versions of pre-existing apps or device features. I also left several out of this section because they fit better elsewhere, and I'll discuss them later. Next up, let's quickly try to get through the TCG games that I haven't already talked about. Pokemon Trading Card Game. This is the TCG released as a Game Boy Color game, with a plot to make it seem more like an actual Pokemon game. Pokemon Card GB2, Here Comes Team GR, the Japan-exclusive sequel to Pokemon Trading Card Game. Like its predecessor, it was given a plot. This time you had to defeat Team Rocket. Pokemon Play It and Pokemon Play It version 2, PC games that simulate the TCG. Pokemon Card Game How to Play DS is a Japan-exclusive game that simply teaches how to play the Pokemon card game. Pokemon TCG Card Decks, a free mobile app that lets you keep a digital record of your Pokemon card collection. Now we move into games that are part of a series. Pokepark Wii Pikachu's Adventure. Released on December 5th, 2009 in Japan, Pokepark Wii Pikachu's Adventure has the player control a Pikachu and explore a Pokemon theme park with multiple areas, each with mini-games to play. Beating the mini-games awards the player with a Sky Prism piece. Once 14 Sky Prism pieces are collected, the final area of the game is unlocked where Mew is encountered. After several games are played, the Sky Prism piece is restored to its original form, and that's the end of the game. Pokepark 2 Wonders Beyond. First released on November 12, 2011 in Japan, the sequel to the first Pokepark once again has the player control a Pikachu. But now instead of just enjoying a romp around a theme park, Pikachu and friends must now save the Pokepark from a dark force. The Pokemon Rumble series consists of 5 games. The first game in the series, simply titled Pokemon Rumble, was a WiiWare title released on June 16, 2009. I'm just going to say the release date in Japan. I'm not going to go over when these games were released in every territory. Pokemon Rumble Blast is the second game in the series and was the first Pokemon game released for the 3DS. Rumble Blast was released on August 11, 2011. Pokemon Rumble U was released on April 24, 2013, and was the first Pokemon game released for the Wii U, though there were only 2 Pokemon games released for that system. Pokemon Rumble World, the 4th game in the series, was released for the 3DS on April 8, 2015. The 5th and latest entry in the series is Pokemon Rumble Rush, which was released for mobile devices starting on May 15, 2019 in Australia, and then on May 22, 2019 elsewhere. The gameplay of all games in the Rumble series is virtually the same. Pokemon take the form of wind-up toys which the player controls. The player progresses through multiple stages, each with various areas, battling other toy Pokemon along the way, before reaching the final area where the stage's boss is located. Defeating a Pokemon will occasionally result in the player obtaining that Pokemon. Each of the games has its own story, as well as unique challenges and features, but the core gameplay mechanics remain the same. Pokemon Pinball is a Game Boy Color game released on April 14, 1999. The game is, as the title says, pinball, but with Pokemon. The goal of the game is to complete the Pokedex by capturing and evolving Pokemon. Capturing Pokemon involves first lighting up 2 to 3 Get Lights by having the ball pass over certain tabs. After the Get Lights have been lit, a Pokemon silhouette appears, which then must be turned to color by hitting the bumpers. After the Pokemon has been fully revealed, the player must then capture it by first hitting the Pokemon 3 times to light up the word Catch, and then hit the Pokemon one last time to actually capture it. To evolve Pokemon, the player must first light up 3 Evo Lights, once again by having the ball pass over certain tabs. After this, the player has to hit an area on the field where an arrow is pointing. Then the player chooses a Pokemon they want to evolve. Depending on how the Pokemon evolves, the player will have to hit an EXP, an Evolution Stone, or a Link Cable 3 times. After doing so, the Pokemon will evolve. In 2003, Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire was released for the Game Boy Advance. This game is largely the same as the first Pokemon Pinball, but with a few changes. The catching mechanic is almost identical, except the Pokemon must only be hit a total of 3 times, but within 2 minutes. Evolving Pokemon works differently, as 3 items representing how a Pokemon evolves must be collected. Then the ball has to enter the center hole once again within 2 minutes. The game also introduces an egg mode. An egg will appear on the field and hatch. The newborn Pokemon will then run around the field and must be hit twice within a time limit to capture it. Both pinball games included various bonus stages with unique themes and victory requirements. In Ruby and Sapphire, beating these bonus stages is the only way to capture Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza. Pokemon Puzzle League and Pokemon Puzzle Challenge are virtually identical games, with Puzzle League being released for the Nintendo 64 and Puzzle Challenge released for the Game Boy Color. The games are Pokemon-themed versions of Tetris Attack, which, despite its name, has nothing to do with Tetris. In Tetris Attack, the player must match up panels that rise from the bottom, with the panels able to be moved but only to the left or right in order to create matches of 3 or more. Pokemon Trose is a Pokemon puzzle game released on October 20th, 2005 for the DS. The game is known as Pokemon Link in Europe. Trose is similar to Tetris gameplay-wise, as Pokemon-shaped blocks fall downward, with the blocks able to be moved in any direction, though blocks moved upward would snap back to their original position if no match is made. Matches of 4 or more must be made unless a Trose chance is active. During this time, if a player is able to make a match of 3 in 2 seconds, matches of 2 can be made, but again must be made in 2 seconds. To get a Trose, 4 matched Pokemon blocks must be matched with a further 5th Ditto block. A sequel game, Pokemon Battle Trose, was released as a downloadable game for the 3DS in March 2014. The gameplay of Battle Trose is virtually the same as its predecessor, except the element of battling wild Pokemon has been added. To battle the wild Pokemon, matches, or Troses, must be made, with the Trose Pokemon then attacking the wild Pokemon. Another change is that in this game, matches can now be 3 or more. Hey You, Pikachu is a game for the Nintendo 64, released on December 12, 1998 in Japan and on November 6, 2000 in North America. The game allowed the player to interact with Pikachu via the voice recognition unit, a specialized microphone for the N64, which was included with the game. The game allowed the player to follow Pikachu through its day, as well as engage in simple activities and mini-games with it. Considering what I've heard about this game and how unresponsive it could be to voice commands, I can't imagine it would have been that much fun to play. Speaking of a game that's probably unfun to play, Pokemon Channel, which is what can only very loosely be called a game, released on July 18th, 2003 for the GameCube. To play it, you simply watch various Pokemon-themed television channels. You can also explore the town the player character lives in and interact with various wild Pokemon. I guess because the developers felt players needed more to do with this game, they included an emulation of the Pokemon Mini, which is one of those physical toy devices I'm not talking about in this video. Pokemon Channel also contained an animated special called Paichu Bros and Party Panic. The special was split into 5 parts, which had to be watched individually before the unsplit version could be unlocked and watched. And just a quick acknowledgement of Pikachu Talk. I don't really think this can be called a game in any context, but I'm not sure what to call it exactly. I guess it was a feature that could be downloaded for Google Home and Alexa smart speakers that allowed you to talk to a Pikachu and have it talk back. The Pokemon Ranger series comprises 3 games, all released for the Nintendo DS. The first game of the series, simply titled Pokemon Ranger, was released on March 23, 2006. This game was how Manaphy was obtained in the core Gen 4 games, as you received a Manaphy egg in Pokemon Ranger and transferred it to Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Heart Gold, or Soul Silver to hatch it. The 9th Pokemon movie, Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea, was released to promote the game. Pokemon Ranger, the comic, double mission, a manga set in the plot of Pokemon Ranger revolves around the player traveling the land of Fiore. Eventually, the player comes into conflict with Team Go-Rock, who are causing problems around the region, and has to stop them. Pokemon Ranger Shadows of Almia, the second game in the series, released on March 20th, 2008. Pokemon Ranger and the Kidnapped Railu, a 2-part anime episode which featured the game's male protagonists, first aired near the game's release to promote it. The manga, Darkrai Mission Story, Pokemon Ranger Vatanage, the comic, is based on the game. Shadows of Almia is set in the Almia region, where players must stop evil team Dim Sun, who are attempting to use Darkrai to plunge the world into the void of nightmares. Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs, the third and to date final game in the series, was released on March 6, 2010. Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs had an anime special based on it, and also the male protagonist from the game appeared in the anime episode Pokemon Ranger Heatran Rescue. Guardian Signs is set in the Oblivia region, with its plot revolving around the Pokemon Pinchers, who are capturing and controlling Pokemon in their attempts to take over the Oblivia region under the orders of the Society, which, surprisingly enough, isn't a collective of YouTube drama channels. In all 3 Ranger games, the player controls a titular Ranger. Pokemon are not captured in the Ranger games, as they are in other games. Instead, a capture styler is used to temporarily take command of a Pokemon, with the Pokemon then used to clear obstacles or aid in capturing more powerful Pokemon. To capture Pokemon with a styler, circles must be drawn around it using the lower screen of the DS. The number of circles needed to capture a Pokemon varies between species, with more powerful Pokemon requiring more circles to be drawn. The Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series is the longest-running Pokemon spin-off series. It currently comprises 11 games and has spawned several manga adaptations and anime specials. The games, which are Pokemon-themed entries in the larger Mystery Dungeon series, are dungeon crawlers, with the bulk of the games taking place within the titular Mystery Dungeons. The games share the common element of having the player character having been mysteriously transformed into a Pokemon and suffering amnesia. Gameplay-wise, the games are turn-based, with each step, attack, or item used counting as a turn. The player has a party of up to 4 Pokemon, 3 in Super Mystery Dungeon, but they only directly control their own Pokemon, with the other party members acting independently. Though the type of AI party members use can be changed, which will change their actions in battle. The titular Mystery Dungeons of the series are vast labyrinths that can have anywhere between 3 to 99 floors. The dungeons change every time they are entered, making it impossible to know how to get through a dungeon even if it has been completed before. Some floors have set conditions, such as weather or reduced sight. The games in the Mystery Dungeon series are Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Red Rescue Team, and Blue Rescue Team, released as the first pair of games on November 17, 2005. Red Rescue Team was released for the Game Boy Advance, while Blue Rescue Team was released for the DS. The plot of these games, as well as their remake, Rescue Team DX, revolves around the player and their team embarking on a quest to stop a series of natural disasters plaguing the world, while also having to contend with Team Meanies, who, while acting under the guise of a rescue team, seek world domination. Pokemon Mystery Dungeons Explorers of Time, Explorers of Darkness, and Explorers of Sky were the next 3 games in the series. Explorers of Time and Explorers of Darkness were released on September 13, 2007, while Explorers of the Sky was released on April 18, 2009. as an enhanced version of the previously released pair. All 3 games were released for the DS. The plot of these 3 games has the player and their team attempting to restore the artifacts known as time gears to their rightful place in the Temporal Tower to fix the flow of time across the world. The next 3 games in the series, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Keep Going, Blazing Adventure Squad, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Let's Go, Stormy Adventure Squad, and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Go For It, Light Adventure Squad, were only released in Japan and for the Wii. The games were released on August 4th, 2009. These are the only games in the series where the player is not a human transformed into a Pokemon. There also only seems to be the barest hint of a plot in these games, and it seems to be more focused on just taking on individual missions. There is apparently a plot that involves a lost Shuckle and jealousy incited by chocolate and cookies found in a dungeon that magically solve everything. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Gates to Infinity was the 9th, 6th internationally game in the series, and released on November 23rd, 2010 for the 3DS. The game's plot involves the player and their team having to defeat Kyurem in the Bitter Cold, an entity caused by the negative emotions of Pokemon that threatens to destroy the world. Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon was released on September 17th, 2015, also for the 3DS. The plot of the game pits the player and their team against a malicious entity called Dark Matter, who seeks to destroy the world. The most recent game in the series is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX, released on March 6, 2020 for the Switch. This game is a remake of the first 2 Mystery Dungeon games. As a remake, its plot is largely the same as that of the Red and Blue Rescue Team games. Pokemon Snap. Dare I say, a cult classic? A game with a deeply devoted fanbase who seemingly willed new Pokemon Snap into existence. Snap was first released on March 21st, 1999 in Japan, with new Pokemon Snap released on April 30th, 2021. Pokemon Snap and its subsequent sequel use the mechanics of an on-rail shooter, except you don't shoot Pokemon, you photograph them, which could still be considered shooting them. In both games, there are multiple themed courses the player traverses, and a special cart from which they photograph the Pokemon. Each Pokemon has a routine it follows, and the objective is to photograph the Pokemon at a certain point in its routine to score maximum points. Various items can be used, allowing for limited engagement with the Pokemon, with these items sometimes necessary to have Pokemon perform certain actions, as well as to unlock new paths through the courses. The games have an incredibly bare-bones story, which is really just framework to explain why you are where you are and why you're doing what you're doing. For the original Pokemon Snap, there were sticker stations, special kiosks that were located in Blockbuster stores that could print off sticker versions of the photos you took in the game. Pokemon Stadium. Pokemon Stadium. Yet more games with a very devoted fanbase who, unfortunately, haven't managed to will a new game into existence yet. The first Pokemon Stadium game was actually a Japan-exclusive game released on August 1st, 1998. That is essentially the same as the subsequent Pokemon Stadium games, except with less Pokemon and modes and no minigames. The Pokemon Stadium most know, known as Pokemon Stadium 2 in Japan, was released on April 30th, 1999. Pokemon Stadium is a game focused solely on the battling aspect of Pokemon. Pokemon could be transferred to Stadium from the Gen 1 games, but there was also a built-in roster of rental Pokemon that could be used. Stadium had various battle modes, and each presented its own challenges to the player. The most notable modes were Free Battle, Stadium, and Gym Leader Castle. In Stadium mode, the game's primary mode, the player could battle using the rules of 4 different cups. Beating Stadium mode allowed the player to challenge Mewtwo. The Gym Leader Castle had the player battle through all 8 Kanto Gym Leaders, the Kanto Elite Four, and finally, their rival, with the prize for doing so being one of 8 possible Pokemon. Pokemon Stadium also had a selection of mini-games, as well as a built-in emulator that allowed Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow to be played. Pokemon Stadium 2, known as Pokemon Stadium Gold and Silver in Japan, was released on December 14, 2000. The game remained largely the same, but featured Gen 2 Pokemon and had compatibility with Gen 2 games, and added new game modes. While Pokemon Stadium 2 was the last Stadium game released, fans did get Pokemon Battle Revolution on December 14th, 2006. Battle Revolution was, gameplay-wise, largely the same as the Stadium games, but with various modes and cups replaced by Coliseums, which served a similar function, as each Coliseum had its own rules. Battle Revolution also lacked the minigames present in the Stadium games. Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness were games for the GameCube, with Gale of Darkness being a sequel to Coliseum. Coliseum was released on November 21st, 2003, and Gale of Darkness was released on August 4th, 2005. Both games take place in the Ore region and involve the criminal organization Cypher, who creates Shadow Pokemon, corrupted Pokemon who have had their hearts sealed away, which leads to them becoming stronger, to use in their attempts to conquer the world. The goal of these games, in addition to thwarting the plans of Cypher, is to snag Shadow Pokemon during battles and purify them, restoring them to their original state. In Coliseum, new Pokemon can only be obtained by snagging them in battles, with no wild Pokemon being present. Wild Pokemon are present in Gale of Darkness, but only in specific locations known as Pokespots. In addition to the story, both games have a Pokemon Stadium-like battle mode, where you can battle with Pokemon obtained during the main story mode, or with Pokemon transferred in from any of the core Gen 3 games. Almost done. Thank God, because my voice is going. Pokken Tournament is a fighting game first released as an arcade game on July 16, 2015, before a port was released for the Wii U on March 18, 2016. An enhanced port titled Pokken Tournament DX was released for the Switch on September 22, 2017. Pokken Tournament is a fighting game heavily based on the Tekken series, with the game developed by Bandai Namco, who own Tekken. While the game is based on the Tekken series technically, it's really just a Pokemon exclusive version of Smash. Gameplay in Pokken Tournament shifts between the 3D field phase, where battling Pokemon are able to freely move around the area, and a 2D duel phase, where movement is more restricted, but similar to that of most other fighting games. The game has a total of 23 Pokemon as playable fighter characters, but all 23 Pokemon are only available in the Switch version. Of these 23 Pokemon, 2 of them are Pikachus. One is a normal Pikachu, and the other is a special Libre Pikachu. There's apparently a plot for the games, but it's a fighting game where Pokemon are beating the crap out of each other. The plot is just trying to dress it up so it doesn't seem so violent. And now we reach the final game I'm going to talk about. Pokemon Go! The mobile app that took the world by storm and held in a firm but gentle vice grip in the summer of 2016. Pokemon Go was a global cultural phenomenon, which some say brought about a few blissful weeks of world peace. And a lot of people doing stupid shit. Like the fact that we live in a world where this sign is a necessary thing, you all really made some choices when it came to this game. In terms of gameplay, Pokemon Go requires the player to walk around in the world to actually find and capture Pokemon. Pokemon spawn randomly, and there are some Pokemon that only appear in certain regions or countries. Aside from capturing Pokemon, you can also battle and take on gyms, which must be defended or they can be taken over by another team. The teams. There are 3 teams you can join, each with its own leader and each represented by one of the 3 Kanto legendary birds. Catching Pokemon works basically the same way it does in the Safari zones of the main games. You do not battle the wild Pokemon, but instead you just attempt to capture them by throwing Pokeballs at it. You can also use berries, which make the Pokemon easier to catch. When attempting to capture a wild Pokemon, a ring will appear around it and shrink over time, restarting once it reaches its smallest size. If the Pokeball is thrown when the circle is near its smallest point, the capture attempt is more likely to succeed. Pokemon Go initially launched with only Gen 1 Pokemon, except for Ditto, the Legendaries, and Mew. Since its launch, many more Pokemon have been added to the game. Some Pokemon can only be obtained through eggs or via raid battles. Also, Pokemon Go is the only way to obtain Meltan and its evolution Melmetal, with Meltan only able to be evolved in Pokemon Go. To evolve Pokemon in Go, they must be fed a certain amount of candy that is specific to their species. This candy is obtained by catching, trading, transferring, or evolving Pokemon, as well as by hatching eggs. I don't know if I somehow managed to miss a game, but I just don't care at this point. It took so long to write the script and so long to record it. My voice is gone from this. The amount of spin-offs and side games in this franchise is insane. The script I wrote has 17 pages and over 9,000 words. And technically, I didn't cover everything that it could have. And I did it in the most bare minimum way possible. I mean, I was hoping for a longer video, but still. If you actually made it to this point, thank you. I don't know what else to say here. I just really didn't feel like coming up with a tidy little concluding spiel, so bye.